was looking bad. Things were looking horrible against the Rams. And then all of a sudden, the Philadelphia Eagles, led by none other than Jalen Hurts, mounted a ferocious comeback. They put together a second half for the ages. And honestly, not to be a prisoner of the moment, this is easily one of the most impressive regular season comeback wins I can ever remember watching as a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. I am going to pull the comments up, bottom right side of the corner. If you want to, you can certainly weigh in with your comments on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Remember, if you're on X, you have to click the video first, go into old Periscope mode, and then you type your comment, and it'll come up on the screen. I'll try to get to as many as I can today. There are a lot of things I want to get to today. Now, some of them are stat-based. Some of them are the immediate reactions by some of the national media pundits that are out there as well. Maybe not so totally surprisingly, national media seems kind of beside themselves because we had this whole thing going on, right, where people have wanted to count the Eagles out. They've wanted to count Jalen Hurts out. There have been concerns about this offense through 2 weeks, but the Eagles were 2-0. And it feels like now there's a little bit of a shift of narrative going on in the national media because the Eagles are now 3-0. They took down a Rams team that many consider to be the second best team in the National Football Conference. That is true. People believe that the Rams could legitimately be the second best team in the conference. I know that a lot of people would say the Packers, but the Packers did just blow a horrific game where they allowed the Browns to come back in a big way and take them down with a last-second field goal. The Cleveland Browns gave the Packers their first loss, and on this auspicious day, I guess, or auspicious day, the Eagles take down the Rams. And again, third quarter, it's 26-7. There is little to no life in this team. It looks as though the Eagles forgot about A.J. Brown again. There were moments where it looked like they were trying to get him involved in the game. We saw a lot of inside handoffs to Saquon Barkley that went much like they have gone in the first 2 weeks of the season, where they don't get you much. Seems like something is easy to be read by the defense. And so this offense was sputtering. And then there was a little bit of not a dust-up, but there was a little bit of a conversation in the second half on the sideline between Jalen Hurts and Kevin Patullo over on the sideline. And there was a video going around of where Hurts didn't exactly get in the face of his offensive coordinator, but he kind of got in the face of his offensive coordinator. And in doing so, he might have saved the game. He might have saved the season to some extent, because make no mistake about it, this was about as bad of a game as you could have had in the first half. And Hurts, at some point, something pivoted, something shifted, where this team went from being an overly conservative one into being one that allows their stars to go out and get the job done. It was something that A.J. Brown actually talked about after the game as well, that he's of the belief that, you have these guys, you have players on this team that are absolute bona fide studs. You have guys on this team who are absolute bona fide killers on this team. Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You have all those guys. At some point, you need to be willing to let off the reins, right? Let go of the reins a little bit and let those guys go out and lead, and let them lead in a meaningful way and find a way to win. And that's exactly what started to happen in the second half. Now, I will show you really quickly a couple of the things that happened in this game. And we'll, of course, get to some of the stats and some of the breakdowns. And listen, Jalen Hurts has just been incredible. I mean, let's start with this one. This is a stat that I think everybody is well aware of. But Jalen Hurts, in his last 17 games where he has started and ended the game, we take out that one game where he got knocked out with a concussion against the Commanders late last season. His last 17 games where he has started and finished a game, including the playoffs, Jalen Hurts is 17-0. That is absurd. That is crazy. That makes no sense, except that the guy is a winner. Now, it would be kind of ridiculous to sit back and say this was all Jalen Hurts in this game, because it wasn't. Listen, the defense made some big plays. We could start with a Zach Bond interception very early in this game against Matthew Stafford that felt like it was going to be a momentum shift. There were some solid defensive plays made even in the second half. Maybe the most consequential substitution made in the game, after Lane Johnson comes out with a stinger in his neck, Johnson comes out, they put Matt Pryor in at right tackle. It does not go well. Hurts gets demolished at one point. I mean, Hurts gets smacked upside the head. And it's a nasty-looking hit. It's a clean hit, but it's a nasty-looking hit. And so the Eagles ultimately choose that instead of having Matt Pryor go back in, they send Fred Johnson out to right tackle. And that was confirmed after the game. Fred Johnson has not practiced at right tackle. He has taken no snaps at right tackle, even, I guess, going back to the preseason. ever since he's been here, at least this year, has not taken a snap at right tackle. And yet, Fred Johnson goes in, and it's almost like, do you remember when Brett Brown years ago talked about Jimmy Butler? And he said, well, there's an adult in the room. James Butler was the adult in the room. It felt like that. They send Fred Johnson out. Fred Johnson solidifies the right side of the line. And all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts is once again afforded the opportunity to make plays in a meaningful way, to find seams in the defense if he needs to pick up some yards with his legs. There were some designed runs in this game, something that we haven't seen a whole lot of through the first 2 weeks of the season. We didn't see the breakdown at the line or everyone's covered, and so Jalen just makes things happen with his legs. We actually saw designed runs. We saw some options. But I want to go out to the thing that I kind of alluded to a little bit ago, which is Jalen Hurts goes over to the sideline and gets around Kevin Patullo, kind of gets into his face a little bit about whatever the hell is going on. Now, mind you, this doesn't happen when it's 26-7. This is as Jalen Hurts very clearly, something changed in this game. No one came out after the fact and said, what was the pivotal shift? What actually changed? But when this game got to 26-21, Jalen Hurts goes up to Kevin Patullo on the sideline. I want you to just see really quickly what he does. He goes over, he's talking to his offensive coordinator, and very clearly, right? He's having a conversation. This is what you want to see. But he's talking to his guys. He's talking to the coaches on the sideline, telling them what he sees. This is what leadership looks like. This isn't a way to try to demean. It's not a way to try to embarrass. Jalen Hurts isn't going out of his way and getting overly demonstrative, right? He's going over, he's talking. He's meeting you at your level if you're sitting on the bench until you stand up. He's meeting at your level. He's not trying to show you up. He doesn't have the arms and the hands going. I mean, God, if we saw that from Jalen Hurts, we'd know something is certainly amiss. Hurts did say after the game that sometimes things necessitate you kind of going out of character a little bit. And so it was when he was asked about that clip. That's the kind of fire that you want to see from a leader. That's the kind of fire that you want to see from a guy that has led you to a Super Bowl twice, has led you to a Super Bowl win once, has won a Super Bowl MVP. Here's the thing that I've just had a hard time dealing with, right? And this has happened through the first 2 weeks of the season, and it certainly happened through the first half of the third game of the season against the Rams. You have a lot of people going on Twitter saying, oh, well, what's going on with the passing game? Did Jalen Hurts regress? Does Jalen Hurts just not want to get the ball to A.J. Brown? What's going on? And then you start seeing people taking shots at some of the radio hosts, right? Mostly the WIP radio hosts, because they've essentially been kind of saying, well, I don't know, Jalen Hurts, it's just not looking like the kind that we expected him to be. It doesn't look like the Jalen Hurts who was the Super Bowl MVP. You start getting that kind of shit spinning up, and it drives you nuts. And so I saw somebody tweeted at Spike Eskin well, clearly the Eagles have been listening to you and your show, and so that's why the passing game looks so bad, which is ridiculous. But here's the thing. When the second half actually happened, right, something changed. Was it Jalen Hurts talking to his offensive coordinator, talking to Nick Sirianni, talking to someone else on the sideline saying, this conservative shit has to stop. We need to get back to what works. And what works? Getting our playmakers involved, getting the ball to A.J. Brown, getting the ball to Devontae Smith, getting the ball to Dallas Goedert, getting Saquon Barkley open in space and making things happen and letting the playmakers make plays. Here's Jalen Hurts post-game, right? So Jalen Hurts talks to Pam Oliver down on the field after the game, and I think it's really important to kind of look at the body language of Jalen Hurts, listen to the words of Jalen Hurts, because, we all know that Jalen Hurts likes to be calm, cool, collected, composed. He typically has a comment that belongs on one of those posters in a principal's office or maybe a boss's office, right, where there's the image and then the one big word and a little subheading, motivation, the thing that gets people excited to go to work, whatever it is. Jalen Hurts usually has one or two of those locked and loaded. He did not have one of those immediately after the game with Pam Oliver, but I do want to go out to it because this to me felt like a very candid Jalen Hurts after Jordan Davis blocks the potential game-winning field goal for the Rams and takes it back to the house for a 33-27 win. Let's go out to Jalen Hurts.
Jalen, what a comeback, a lot of memorable moments in this ball game. What are you going to take away from a victory like today?
First of all, dude's smiling. I know that sometimes there's this idea that Hurts is so stoic. Does he actually enjoy the wins? Does he enjoy the games? Of course he does. Here he is. Big smile, and you can see he's trying to formulate, all right, what quote am I going to give here? What kind of a motivational quote can I provide to Pam Oliver? All right, let's hear what he has to say. We're a few seconds in, and there's still nothing. He's thinking.
regardless, it's always good to get a win. It's always good to get a win.
All right, we've heard this one before, Jalen. It's always good to get a win. Yes, we know. Yes, we know QB1. Continue.
And if that doesn't show you what type of team we are, I don't know what does. Now, we completely did that to ourselves in the first half. Completely. I mean, absolutely completely did that to ourselves. And that's something we gotta fix.
So I love that part of it, right? And you should too. If you're an Eagles fan, you should love the fact that Jalen Hurts took accountability for the first half. Because as much as we like to dunk on Kevin Patullo, as much as we like to dunk on the offense from the first 2 weeks and the first half of this game against the Rams, because it looked bad, and they were not getting the ball to the biggest playmakers on the team, and they were not creating space or any kind of meaningful lanes for Saquon Barkley to, run to set up the pass game or get the ball to the playmakers on the outside to use the pass game to set up the run game. There still is some accountability that has to fall on the players. Like, the play calling might suck, but the players still have to figure out a way to execute those plays and perhaps find the end zone a few times in the first half of a game. They didn't do it. So, would it be easy for Jalen Hurts to say, first half, we're just going to shake it off? No. He says, we did this to ourselves. Like, he says, if this doesn't show you the kind of team we are, I don't know what will. That is talking about the holistic effort of the offense, the defense, special teams, that they put it all together, that they didn't give up. When they go down 26-7 in the second half, they don't give up, they fight back, and they just find ways to win. What do we always say? Good teams are able to win games that they should probably win. Great teams find a way to win. Generational teams, historic teams, potential dynasty teams, they find a way to find a win and to create a win from what otherwise appears to be a surefire loss. This was one of those games where if you are starting to lock yourself into the mentality of the Eagles have a legitimate chance of going back and winning a second Super Bowl, winning consecutive Super Bowls, maybe having their own version of a dynasty, this game against the Rams is the kind of game that should set off all of those good alarms in your head. Because this is a game that most teams in this league would have quit. This is a game at 26-7 in the second half that a lot of teams would have kind of rolled over and died, and yet this Eagles team didn't do that. All right, let's get back out to Jalen Hurts.
It's as simple as that. It's unacceptable.
It's like you guys said later for this. Whatever happened in that first half, forget about it. Let's go and show who we are.
We play so many styles of football where in that first half, we got to get out of this plan not to lose. We got to come out aggressive and play our game.
I'm going to re-rack part of what he just said because this is something that you also heard from A.J. Brown post-game and I think is a very astute point.
That first half, we got to get out of this plan not to lose.
We got to get out of this playing not to lose. That overly conservative style we saw through 2.5 games.
We got to come out aggressive and play our game. You saw our game in the second half.
What about Big Boy with the block?
Now we get to Jordan Davis.
And chugging down the field.
I knew he was going to block it. I just knew he was going to block it. That's just a great effort, man. Great effort by everybody. It was frustrating. It was challenging, but it was gritty. And everybody got together and made plays when we needed to. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters. But we will fix the things that we need to fix.
That's what you want to hear. So at the end there, we're going to fix the things we need to fix. Again, you're excited, you're elated. He's laughing about Jordan Davis going the length of the field. But he's not going to lose sight of the fact that, like, the first half was unacceptable. And I will go to this real quick because Chris Fried throws this idea out here. Eagles did not win this game. Rams lost it. Russ, you're reading too much into it. I disagree. This was not a case of the Rams flat out losing the game. Could we maybe try to find a middle ground here and say the Eagles played their asses off in the second half and the Rams failed to execute? Yes. I mean, listen, you're 2 field goals or even 1 blocked field goal away from this being a Rams win. Special teams executed on a different level. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis next to each other were absolute dogs. I don't just mean Georgia Bulldogs, I mean dogs. They looked sensational. This offense found a rhythm, started eating some clock the way that you expect this Eagles offense to do it. And once the defense finally had an opportunity to rest because the Eagles offense was able to stay out on the field for a while, they certainly looked better. There were some big plays in this game. What was his name? Bennett making a few really good, smart plays in the secondary late in this game. a lot of things to look at in the second half and say, no, this wasn't just like the Rams choked the game away. The Eagles grabbed this game by the huevos, and they didn't let go.